Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lab Talk from Elektor TV. You're looking at episode 22 now, so that we're getting up there in age. And I'd like to introduce my colleague and engineer, Jean-François Simon, who joins us now from France. How are you, Jean-François?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So you're on the west coast of France. Okay, so I remember that, La Rochelle. And then, unfortunately, Saad is ill today, so he can't join us. Saad Imtiaz, our chief engineer. But I've got a surprise guest here, since we will be going to Electronica this year. Let me bring up that. We will be exhibiting at Electronica and visiting, and I've got our content director, CJ Abade, joining us now from the east coast of the United States. How's it going, CJ?
Great. How are you guys?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you've got the business head, more of the business head out of all of us. Tell us what we could expect from our presence at Electronica. I only get to see you like once or twice a year, and I'll see you then.
Yeah, that will be great. So as everyone knows, we go to Electronica every 2 years, and this year we'll be there. It'll be in Munich from the 12th to the 15th of November, and anyone who's at the event can stop by our booth. We're at B4440. As usual, we'll have a bunch of engineers. We'll have journalists at the show. This year, we're going to bring a special edition of Elektor magazine, which our team is currently working on. It showcases content, some of the best content from this year in Elektor, and also from our colleagues at EE News Europe. We're also going to do some live stuff at the show. So in terms of engineering and content, we're going to have a studio set up. That's where Elektor and our colleagues at EE News can interview guests. We could talk to industry influencers, executives, notable engineers. And so if you're there, you can come watch live, or if you're remote, you can tune in to one of our streams that will be running from the show. This year, we also have some influencers who will be joining us, some of whom Brian has interviewed. Jean-François knows quite well. We'll have Great Scott, Max Imagination, and DIY guy Chris. They'll be there to share their insights, to engage the audience, talk about projects. So if you've seen their work on YouTube or on the Elektor channels, you're quite familiar with them. If not, I encourage you to check those guys out. And you can bring questions and ask them about their projects and see if they have any insights about yours. One of the things that Jean-François will be helping out with at the show is we're going to have these Project 360 sessions. Basically, we're going to showcase some technologies. For example, we might look at the DIY LiPo supercharger kit that Great Scott worked on with us. We can take that apart and have the audience ask questions if they want. So we'll have some of those set up live right there at the booth. There might be some other engineering tips and tutorials. We haven't fully planned all of those yet, but we're in discussions about those now. I'm trying to think what else. It's very busy. Forums, we're going to have some forums. So we'll be moderating and hosting some forums for the industry and particularly for students. Typically at these events, the last day of the show is a student day. So we'll have some great content for them. And many of the students are familiar with those influencers who I mentioned. So they'll have a chance to ask them questions and to meet those guys at our booth and at those forums. And we have a fast forward. Sorry, one more thing. Lots going on. Fast forward. So we've done it in the past. We've done these fast forward startup awards. We'll be doing it again this year. I believe we had around 100 companies that came in as candidates for that. These are startups and scale-ups, of course, in the electronics industry. But we'll be, showcasing 5 of them, and then there'll be an awards ceremony for them. So that's an opportunity for those companies to network, showcase their tech at mini booths around our booth, and also meet, our community while they're there. So all of that stuff's going on. We'll have more information on our website about it and in the upcoming edition of the magazine. So if you're interested in seeing the agenda, please check out our site so that you can stop by the booth or you can catch one of our live streams.
Yeah, I was at the Fast Forward in 2022, and it was great having our main booth and then a bunch of satellite booths of all these startups competing to get recognition. So I look forward to that this year.
Yeah, it'd be really great.
So that's Electronica this year, November 12th to 15th. That's Tuesday to Friday, I believe. And if you're near Munich, feel free to come in and say hello at the Elektor booth. We'll all be there, or we'll be square.
Yeah, I'll be there. Brian, you'll be there. Jean-François, Jens, our editor-in-chief. So we'll have a nice crew there to talk with the community and to also stream. We'll do a lot of streaming.
Yeah. And anyway, CJ, I know you're crazy busy now. You've got a lot of edits, plus you're preparing for shows and exhibitions. So I'm going to let you run.
Okay.
10:06 a.m., 10:07 a.m. on the East
Yes.
Coast there. Enjoy the rest of your morning.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Yeah, so that's Electronica. And if you want to know more about it, besides the Elektor website, where we'll be publishing updates, the URL, even though you probably can't see it, it's electronica.de. It's quite simple. Now, let's move on to our giveaway that we regularly have here on the channel. We are celebrating, well, soon we will be celebrating 50 years of Elektor in English. So that's what we're giving away. Our first edition was published in December of 1974, and this archive goes all the way from then until December of 2023. So it's 50 years of Elektor on one USB stick. The URL is there. I will show you the URL later, and as always, I'll give you the code word later, because you've got to enter a code word here, plus prove that you're not a robot. So that is the prize that you can expect right there. Why am I showing you a web page when I can show you the actual product? It's right here. I have my own. So open it up to the mic. You've got a USB stick, and it's not insignificant. There's quite a lot on it, and I will get to that later, because 50 years is a long time in English alone. Although Elektor, as a brand, as a magazine, started off as Electronica Wereld in the Netherlands back in 1961. CJ did mention our sister publication who's sponsoring us today, EE News Europe. The URL, again, is simple, eenewseurope.com, and it's a publication of Elektor International Media, just like we are, so we're glad they support us, and we support them. It's a digital publication, unlike us, we do print as well, developed to serve the European B2B electronics industry, with essential news about the global electronics market. So if you're looking for news about topics such as embedded systems, power management, analog tech, RF, EE News Europe has you covered. So head over to eenewseurope.com to stay informed. Okay, now, Jean-François, I'm sure our audience is waiting for us to get down to nuts and bolts. You, as an engineer, have been busy engineering away, and you've got some interesting articles. I think the first one we're going to talk about is your modifying a DC load article, which comes up in November of this year.
Yes, exactly. I think it was, I'm sorry?
Take us through that then.
Yeah, sure. I will share my screen now. So it's an article about modifying a DC load. Let's see. First slide. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is a EAST tester or Mustool ET5410A+. It's a DC load to test batteries or power supplies that I bought some time ago, and it's very good, but it's really loud too. In particular at low loads, when I just want to discharge some AA batteries or small solar panels or small loads, it's still very noisy. So I wanted to see if I could silence it. I think I mentioned this in one of the past lab talks that we did. And the article was supposed to go in the summer circuit edition, but it wasn't able to due to size limits. So in the end, it will be in the November issue. So I can show you a glimpse of it. Here I am, so I've been doing some reverse engineering of the fan control circuitry and see if we can improve, because the fan speed are very early staged. The first one is quite fast, and then the second one and the third one are very fast too, but very close together. I'm sorry about that. So I can show you a little bit of the article that will come in the next edition. Let's see. Can I find it?
There you go.
So it's It's a pretty nice article. I'm happy with it. So I go in detail into the schematics and the working of the circuit and what component values can we change to change the fan speed and how can we improve the overall circuitry. So I think you will find it quite interesting if you have one of these DC loads, or if you are thinking about buying one of them. So that's about it for this DC load, I think.
And did you succeed? You could consider that a success?
Yes, I succeed indeed. I'm quite happy with the result. So now this DC load is much quieter at low levels of loading, and it's also more efficient in cooling when you really push hard on it. So I was able to both reduce the first speed and increase the last speed.
Nice. Well, I wouldn't expect anything less than success from you. And we have a congrats from Bruno Peters. He says, congrats, Jean-François, with your article on TensorFlow Lite on Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy that you liked it.
And Frank de Hert is here, as usual, from Belgium. And we've got people all over the world. Hi again to Bruno. And we've got Spain in the house. We've got Delft in the Netherlands. We've got Finland. We've got Sweden, Denmark, Poland, the UK. I'm going to end up naming all the countries in the world, so I better stop. As always, we have the famous question, what is the code word? I will give you the code word later. Hang in there about halfway through the show. And here's a nice one from a LinkedIn user. I learned so much from Elektor, also from the small mistakes that you had to find. Yes, we were small in those days. What was the name again before it became Elektor, later Elektor? That's a good question, and I will show you now. We'll get back to you now, Jean-François. It was called Electronica Wereld, and that was the first edition that you're seeing here in April of 1961. And it was started by a guy named Bob van der Horst, who you see there in a newspaper I found in our Cistercian offices. So this was in the Nieuwe Limburg Zaterdag on the 21st of February 1970. So that was 9 years after this came out. So it was Electronica Wereld, then it became Elektor. And then 6 years later, we had our first Elektor English. So there you go. That's the first cover of the English edition. Now, all of this, as I said, is on the stick. So if I show you because you're a technical audience, obviously I looked at the folder structure. That's what's on the stick. There is an executable at the bottom, but you don't need to use the executable. I mean, that would probably only work on Windows. Just open the index.html file. And it's not insignificant. There I had a look at the structure. It's 18.3 gigabytes, 12,477 files. So I don't think you'll get tired of that. And if you open the index.html, you get the archive. And that's the opening page that you'll get. So I can go to the Elektor 1976 and find that very first introduction letter from Bob. Sorry, I said 76, I meant 74, my bad. 1976, well, 74 as you see clearly on the cover. And there's your first Elektor, and let's go to the editorial. There you go. That is the introduction letter from Bob himself. And I'm not going to read it to you, but if you want to pause this video, you're welcome to read it. And of course, if you have Elektor on the stick or you have a subscription, you can get this from our website and read the article yourself. So that's Bob's letter. But what about search functionality? We've had so many great projects over the years. For example, one of the earliest one was the Elektor scope. That was 1976. That was 2 years after the magazine started. And you see it, December 1976. And this, you know, oscilloscopes would have been very expensive at that time. And cathode ray tubes were the order of the day back then. And, you know, Elektor jumped in and showed you how to build your own. Very archaic electronics by today's standard, but yeah, I never had an oscilloscope until a few years ago. So it's definitely an important tool to have in your lab that I was sorely missing out on. And I could have just built my own. Look at that front. Even the front panel is designed. Boards that you can etch.
Nice
So
article.
yeah. I don't
I
think
can't
we
believe
would
how
build
much
this one.
work went into this.
Yeah, a lot of work. It's a 10-page article. I mean, look at these.
Tube sockets, nice.
Yeah. X and Y axes. Again, if you're an Elektor subscriber, green or gold, you have access to all of this anyway. But what I like about this stick is that I don't have to wait for things to download. I've got instant access. This is on my computer. So I return to another article. Let's see, 1979, something up my alley. TV games machine. Look at that. At the time, I think you basically had the Atari 2600, one of which I have behind me. There was also the Intellivision, which I haven't got my hands on yet. But this is April of 1979. Already selling in the UK for 55 pence and the USA and Canada for $1.75. And look at those screenshots. So not only did they build a games computer and allow you to build it at home, a lot of work must have gone into the software. I think people sometimes tend to underestimate, it's on page 6 there, how much work goes into making software for these things. It's easy enough to put a CPU and an EEPROM, or EEPROM back in those days. I don't think they had EEPROMs, and get your system up and running. But then, what do you play? So this article is quite comprehensive from April of 1979 in Elektor English. Chips in the electronic sense used to be transistors. That's true. I wonder how many transistors are on an NVIDIA chip these days. Anyway, look at the graphics. So not only do they go into the hardware, the memory map, look at the keys, but they also go into programming the software and the graphics and the sprites, and a lot of work here.
Nice. That reminds me of the internet meme. Can it play Doom? But I think this doesn't.
Not the original port of Doom, maybe a much more simplified one that we'd have to write by ourselves. But you know, things have just become more and more integrated. I mean, these days, if you want to play a retro machine like this, you can buy a joystick with a little blob of silicon, you know, just paste it on, not even surface mount or anything like that, and it just emulates the whole thing. So what I have seen, to go back to Jean-François now, is at a time when I had my Texas Instruments computer and it had cartridges, some third parties tried to make cartridges, but some of them needed some special logic, and they released them by using some special form of FPGA to get custom functionality in a small package from the card. So let's go back to Jean-François, because I know you have something about FPGA from your December AI article in our AI edition coming up in December.
Yes, true. It's in the pipeline. It's not really related to gaming, but yes, indeed, I have heard some guys are redoing vintage game consoles in fully in FPGAs, and that can play the exact the exact image of the original cartridge. So that's quite fun. But I think FPGAs are very tricky topic and quite hard to get into. And I've been thinking of trying them for a long time, but so now there is one opportunity, because in December we will be doing an issue dedicated to AI, as you know. And so I've been thinking maybe I can do something with an FPGA while being a beginner and using AI. So that's what I'm going to do for December. So I've been using a new book that I can recommend. If you can, maybe you can go to my screen. Yes, thank you. So this book by Russell Merrick is really great. Getting started with FPGAs, I really liked it. It's very simple at the beginning. It goes through lookup tables and flip-flops and very simple logic, and then it gets quite advanced. So, and one of the good things about this is that all the code examples are given both in VHDL and Verilog. So that's excellent. As I am in France, and as Elektor is quite German, we I have a little bit of an incentive to use VHDL, but for the others who want to use Verilog, it's completely possible as well. So to go with that, I had collected some dev boards. So these ones are from Altera or Intel. I have 2 DE0 nanos and 1 DE10 Lite that I collected for very little money on the classifieds, but never used them so far. So now I am going through the book and doing the examples and beginning with very simple projects. Yeah, on these things, even blinking an LED is quite a challenge. So, or making a flip-flop, or
it's the opposite of Arduino.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm using Quartus, the software from Intel. That's very big and quite buggy and full of subtleties that it can use a lot of Googling to get around. But luckily enough, I can use ChatGPT to help me, and that's the AI part, of course. So I can ask questions about VHDL and ask ChatGPT to explain me things and to comment code that I find on the internet, but that's not commented, so that's really great. And I've been making much progress thanks to ChatGPT. So for this December project, I think I will be using this DE10 line because it already has a 7-segment display. So I think I can make a nice clock or something like that, or a counter, or so this way I don't have to solder wires to the other smaller board. So of course it's you can't just ask ChatGPT give me the code for a complete clock on this board. It won't work, but still it's very impressive what it can do. So it's a work in progress.
Nice. And what's the difference between Verilog and VHDL?
That's a good question. If I'm not mistaken, Verilog looks more like C, but it's not, of course, because in Verilog and in VHDL, everything happens at once. At the same time, there is no processor going through the code line by line. It all happens at the same time. So that can be very confusing at the beginning. But Verilog looks like C, and I think VHDL looks more like Ada, and VHDL is much more strongly typed and much more vigilant about errors that you can make. If you try to add an 8-bit number to a 1-bit number, it won't work, and you will get a nice error message. Whereas in Verilog, you can do this just fine. And I think there are differences as well with the case sensitivity and things like that. But I think it's mostly a matter of habit and using what your professors use when you're at the university, or that's why we end up with such a strong split between the US, where it's a Verilog, mostly a vast majority of Verilog users, and Europe, where we have a small pool of VHDL programmers in France and Germany.
So if you ask me to make a chip or a circuit that does something custom, I would just try to find the microcontroller with the appropriate number of GPIOs to emulate the design, because FPGA looks very complicated. How many hours have you spent on learning FPGA?
Oh man, I can't count. It's way too much. If I tell how much, I will be fired.
Well, they weren't all necessarily on the clock hours, were they?
No, but some of them were. But yeah, it's very long and a very slow process. When I first got this LED to light up, it was a huge success for me. It doesn't look like it, but
yeah. If you told someone how difficult it was to light up an LED, I think they would stick with Arduino in that case.
Yeah, and it's a bit silly because if I want to light an LED while pressing a switch, I can just wire it to the switch and don't use an FPGA at all. But yeah, get the point.
Cool. I'm going to jump in again with some Jack E. Engineer, a regular on the show, says 50 years. Yeah, not quite, but we work ahead of time. We have deadlines months in advance. So in December, we'll certainly be celebrating, and I just want to go back to an old computer again, the SCMP or SCAMP as they called it. When was it? It was November 1977. I would just use the search bar, but I also want to show you the cover. So there's another microcomputer circuit based on the microprocessor called the SCMP from, I think it was NEC. This article's on page 2, so it should be easy to get to after all the ads. And I used to enjoy these ads, really. I used to go through these line items looking at little components. Oh, there's the famous Elektor Formant synthesizer, still legendary today. Half-price teletext. Yeah, we had teletext here for a while in South Africa as well. Data hidden in the video signal that you could decode. That was fascinating. There we go. Experimenting with the SCMP. Stood for, pronounced SCAMP. It's a national semiconductor microprocessor, and it enabled people to build their own computers because home computers weren't really a thing. I think Apple had something and maybe the Commodore PET, but there wasn't a whole lot of stuff happening in the home, and it was damn expensive if you did have it. So this introduced hobbyists to microprocessor technology, which, look at the flow chart, would enable you to build your own computers at a time when personal computers were far from common. There's some programming logic for you. I bet this is not as impressive as the logic that went into the TV games machine. But there's the legendary SCMP, the SCAMP chip itself. Very interesting. Address buses this side. Look, and data bus this side. It says AD. I think on the 8086 that suggests multiplex, but I don't think that's the case here.
Can you still find these on eBay or something?
I should look. I have seen the Elektor TV games machine for sale secondhand here once on Facebook Marketplace. I should have taken it, but I think they wanted an exorbitant amount. But yeah, definitely worth having a look on eBay, especially since I'll be seeing you in a couple of months in Munich.
Yeah, I also found the Formant on the classifieds, but it was expensive as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. The Formant was a month-long modular synthesizer concept, and it was an analog synthesizer, so that was cool. Anyway, I'll take up less of your time now and just look at the comments again. Building the SCAMP also took me time. Okay, Jean-Pierre, I'm assuming that you did it on the clock. Okay, Renee, you want me to increase my volume? I can sit closer to the microphone if you need. Testing, 1, 2. If that'll do better.
You're strong now.
Cool. The FPGA learning envelope, yeah, Christian agrees with that. It is indeed difficult, as I thought. That's why I didn't learn it back in, what was it, 1988, when I saw my first cartridge with FPGA. I thought it was damn cool that they could do it, but just never got an inroad. Let's go back to you, Jean-François. Actually, before we go back to you, I see we are about halfway through. So to please those who want the code word, let me bring up that giveaway again and put up the banner. Why not? The code word today is 50. So I just drop that in here. And I never enter these because firstly, I'm not eligible. Secondly, I find it difficult to prove that I'm not a robot. I haven't mastered that yet. Okay, so there's your competition. You've got the URL on screen and you've got the code word, so you shouldn't have any problems. Good luck. This is certainly a treasure trove. And I got mine for free. I didn't even have to enter any competition. So there are some perks with being on the clock, as we put it. Jean-François, I know you've prepared some other stuff to show us. Let's go back to you.
Nice, thank you. Yes, besides FPGAs, I've also been tinkering with the PCB design. Right now, I'm using KiCad or KiCad. I think we must say KiCad. But anyway, and sometimes you can you can be in a situation where you want to include a vector file or a bitmap on your PCB, either on the silk screen or even in the copper layer, if you want to make a complex footprint, maybe from a 3D model that you have elsewhere, or maybe you have mechanical constraints that came from AutoCAD, and then you want to import them into KiCad or other tools. So I've been looking at several ways to convert graphics to PCB footprints. So here on the screen, you can see, for example, a nice USB stick made by Boltport. My favorite programming language is Solder, and it's a tribute to Bob Pease with a nice circuit and a very pretty silk screening with curves and a nice font and all of that. So that can be a little bit hard to do straight in the KiCad, but you can do it in for example, Inkscape, and then use one of the tools that I will describe in a bit, and then you can import them to KiCad, or if you want to make PCBs for Christmas or badges or business cards. And so there are a few solutions that you will be able to download the slides afterwards to get the links, or you can Google them. There is a tool made by Winterbloom. It's a nice young company that makes synthesizer modules. We were talking about the Formant, so it's a more modern version of that. So it can get very complex. I'm not really into synthesizer, but I think they make great modules. I've seen very good reviews. So you can look it up here. And to make these modules with pretty front panels and custom 100% custom circuits, they've been creating a tool in Python that can convert vector graphics to KiCad footprint. In fact, it's about the same concept as the other tools here. SVG2 mod as well. PCB mod E by Saad. This man was previously working for Elektor. He made some. He makes some nice PCBs that you can offer as gifts. That they are combining functionality with the artistic side of it. So it's very interesting. And also a plugin called SVG to Shenzhen. That's a funny name because indeed using Inkscape, you can. It's a plugin for Inkscape. You can install it, and then you can draw your PCB completely in Inkscape, and then it converts it to a KiCad file. So I tried this one, but it was a bit buggy at times, and I think there is some learning curve as well. So in the end, I just used the built-in KiCad image converter. You can load your image and scale it and export it to the footprint editor. So by default, it's on the silk screen layer, but then using KiCad, you can move it to any layer you want. So if you do it in steps, you can. So I've been creating a quite complex footprint using the 2 copper layers and the front and back silk screen layers. I can't show it here because I didn't receive the board from JLC PCB yet, but and I want to keep a little bit of a surprise for next issue, but I'm eager to see what it looks like. And I think that's it about this topic for me.
So a lot of GitHub, I presume this is all open source stuff then?
Yeah, I think so, yes. And for the gingerbread tool, you can actually run it in the Winterbloom website. You don't need to install it, or it's already hosted so it's the easiest to use with that regards. But I think it's specific for one, I forget which, but one piece of software for SVG editing, and it's not Inkscape. It's another one, a paid one. So it may or may not be usable depending to your needs.
Okay. I think those are great resources. We should put those in the description of the YouTube video when we're done.
It's they are all very custom tools that were made for very custom needs. So sometimes they can be a bit tricky to reuse.
Yeah, but you've gone down that lane, and you spent a lot of hours there as well. I wouldn't say it's wasted, Jean-François. You've learned something valuable that I don't know. So anyway, as the oldest person in this chat, I'm going to go back to my first Elektor project, which I didn't design, unlike you, but I want to show you the first Elektor I bought. It was 1990. I think I was 16 years old. It was that one there, and I still have that somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it is. Nonetheless, it had an SVHS to RGB converter, which you see at the top there. And there's a picture of the board. But it was a two-part article, so Elektor got me to buy 2 in a row. And then from that point, I was hooked. They left me at a cliffhanger. The second edition was, the second parter was there, the brown one, but I don't have to click on that because that one, at least, I know where it is. And what it did was it take a composite video signal, you know, the old school yellow connector, either that or an S-video connector. Most importantly, higher quality video equipment would have 4-pin mini-DIN connector for S-video. So the circuit looks something like that. And I still have mine. It's been through a thing or two. I've removed components I've salvaged because I don't use this anymore. A couple of relays that were there to switch between composite, because it's got composite and S-video input. So you've got Luma Chroma and ground, or just composite and ground. And then these solid state relays, I believe they were, would switch between them. Or maybe they were analog relays, I can't remember. But here's the old Philips TDA 3505 that would separate that into red, green, and blue, which would come out on the Scott, or as you guys in France know, the Peritel connector. So that's pretty cool. And to have these all available, just instant click, and there it is. I don't have to download anything. It's all here locally on my machine. So I've also been spending too many hours on this, Jean-François, but I haven't been billing for them. Video line selector. Ah, that's, you see, I'm an old school TV guy. I used to have giant satellite dishes and all that sort of thing. But to skip ahead, we spoke about the CRT oscilloscope earlier. That was in, I think it was 76. Yeah. And we're going to jump ahead now to the year 2000, when a whole new way of doing an oscilloscope came along. It's a Game Boy digital sampling oscilloscope. Somehow, Steve Willis here managed to hack a Game Boy, put a new cartridge, and there you have it. Instead of a CRT, you've got an oscilloscope on your Game Boy with advanced menu screens.
That's awesome. I was not aware of this article. I remember some other articles about the Game Boy, but not this one. We'll have a look later.
Quite a versatile device by the looks of things. And if you're looking for it, it was in the October 2000 edition. Let's have a look at the comments before I go back to Jean-François. Jean-Pierre says he still has it. I presume you mean the Scamp computer from back in the day. Then Ari says, thanks, good info, especially for importing ancient designs. Like me, I'm an ancient design. I was also released in the 70s. But let's go back to Jean-François. What else have you found that's interesting?
Yes, I just have a few notes to finish. A few interesting things I found on the internet, or elsewhere. Just a few days ago, I was someone recommended a book to me, which looks really nice. I didn't read it yet, but I've ordered. The book should come in a few days. It's called The ID Factory, and it's about innovation at Bell Labs, and about what you need to come up with innovation, what kinds of people, what kind of team, and it has very good reviews and looks like a very nice book. So I'm eager to have a look at it. And apart from that, and it's not related to that book in any way, but I just found out that the Bus Pirate, famous tool for hacking, I'm not sure if you are using it, but I still have the one on the left, version 3.6, I think, from maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And they just updated it to use the latest chips from Raspberry Pi, the RP2350 A and B versions. So that's great. I will see if I can order one to have a look. This one in the middle is the Bus Pirate 5, so that you can use this tool to have a look at signals and probe and dump memories, or talk to sensors using various protocols, SPI, I2C. You can create some decoders, so it's quite a versatile tool and a very popular tool. But very recently, so this one in the middle is using the RP2040. That's how long? 2 years old, or I don't remember when. It was released.
I think it came out in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, 4 years already.
Oh, you mean the 2350? That's
I'm getting old already, but I was mentioning the first one, the RP2040. So, and then they upgraded to the RP2350 just a few weeks ago. So I think they are waiting for some feedback from users to see if there are any bugs on. And maybe there is also some procurement problems with the RP chip. So maybe it's better to wait a few weeks until you buy one. And finally, two more things. I just heard about this cute one-channel oscilloscope. It's called the FleeScope, and it's very inexpensive. It's about 18 euros. And you can plug it to your PC or to an Android phone or tablet. And all the control is made using a browser. It's 100% web-based. So that can be a nice tool to have in your toolbox when you're traveling or something like that, or in your car or things like that. I've been using the analog discovery from analog devices, but it's a great tool, much more capable than this, but it's also much more expensive. So this one is great to get the functionality for this cost is excellent. And finally, the Reflow Master Pro, it's this module on the right, which you can see here without the 3D printed case, but you have a nice case with it also. And this is to convert a convection oven to SMD reflowing oven. And I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but it's still on my to-do list. I have all the parts, but I like the controller, so maybe this one can be a good candidate. So with this, you can set up the target temperature and the speed of climbing that you want to get your profile just correct, so you can so the solder paste melts right when it needs to, and so that's a quite nice project, I think.
Indeed, we've gone from CRT to Game Boy, and now just look at it on your phone, or presumably your tablet if you'd like a bigger screen.
Yeah, I think a tablet would be easier indeed, because it gets a little bit small to click on things.
Yeah, especially with my eyesight. Question
anyway,
from Ari.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was finishing. Just these are just a few notes from the internet. It would be interesting to, if some viewers have some recommendations about products or technical news that they found, you can drop this in the chat. It will be interesting to share.
Yeah, please do ask your questions. I have one. You said you're lacking the controller. What sort of controller are you lacking there?
So I have the oven with the heating elements, and of course there is the original controls for the oven, but that's a bit crude because you can only set the temperature and that's it. And if you want to do proper reflow, you also want to control the speed of climbing for the temperature, and then the speed of cooling down. Some designs even include a motor to open the door or a fan or something like that. So you want to stick as much as possible to the profile that is recommended by the solder paste manufacturer. And so there are lots of designs using Arduino or ESP32s, or I think this one is using ESP32. And Elektor also published some controller. I think it was in 2006, so that's a bit that gets a bit old, but there are many designs available. I just need to pick one and fine-tune the process.
Yeah, the famous selection process.
Yes, that can take
Well, thanks
forever.
for sharing that with us. I think we've gone full circle from December 1974 to stuff that you are writing for December 2024, and from CRT to Game Boys to cell phone and tablet oscilloscopes. Although Dual Beamer does say that many of the vintage electronics projects that I mentioned were discussed in Electronics series. Yes, I think that was, let's bring it up here. There was a series, and I remember watching some of it on Elektor TV as well. Yeah, it was by Jan Boiting, editor-in-chief at the time, still with us, from Veribox to heavy metal and so on. Yeah, he did a whole series. He also loved his old TV pattern generator, you see, up my alley once again. But let me not get carried away. Ari wants to know if the stick includes all language versions. Not the English one, not the one we're giving away. They come in different languages. So you'll see as a French one, 1978 to 2023. And then, of course, the Dutch one, which I assume you're asking about, that's 1961 to 2023. So that's the mother lode of all the original articles, which I assume Ari is looking for. Judging by your surname, I presume you're Dutch. So this is the one, elektor.nl. Just look for Elektor Archief 1961. Any further questions? Let's have a look. No, I think that's about it. We're a bit shorter than usual today in terms of time because unfortunately Saad Imtiaz couldn't join us and he had to show us a few things. Gerhard Birkenstock has the GBDSO still. Do you still use it? I wonder. It's been quite a nice conversation. I see we have a lot of people watching, hence so many interesting comments coming through from around the world. I'm about ready to wrap it up now. Let me just remind you of the giveaway. It's elektormagazine.com/Elektor-Lab Talk-giveaway. The code word is 50 because we have 50 on our mind. 1974 to 2023. 2024 will be our 50th of Elektor in English. So good luck to those of you entering. You've all got the code word. You've heard it loud and clear, I hope. Thanks to CJ for joining us earlier to give us a little bit of a preview on Electronica 2024, where we'll be in Munich, all three of us and the rest of the team. So we'll see you then. And thanks again, Jean-François, for preparing those interesting slides. It went all over the place, taking me from CRTs to doing an oscilloscope on a cell phone, which is also great. And it's also so convenient to just pull that out then, big box oscilloscope. So thanks for everything you showed us, Jean-François.
You're welcome. Thank you for the presentation and your detailed look at video projects.
Yeah, well, Brian gonna Brian. Pasi says, thank you, Brian and Jean-François. It was fun hearing about Elektor history and all about all kinds of projects. And it was our pleasure to present them, of course. So thanks to everyone else who joined us from around the world, and have a good rest of your day, wherever you are.
Thank you. See you next time.